You had when they made a couple runs late?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, our group has seen it all. We wanted to come in.
The world of basketball was ready to write the Indiana Fever off before the ball had even been tipped. But what happened on that electric night in Las Vegas completely flipped the script and sent shockwaves throughout the WNBA. Nobody, not the ESPN analysts who confidently predicted a sweep. Not the odds makers who laughed at the idea of Indiana stealing even a single game. And certainly not the reigning back-to-back champion Las Vegas Aces believed this Fever team had a prayer of winning. The stage was perfectly set for Las Vegas to flex their dominance. It was supposed to be a celebration, a coronation of greatness, with banners hanging high in the rafters and a sold-out home crowd ready to roar as Aaliyah Wilson stood at center court to receive her MVP trophy, the ultimate symbol of the league's power structure. Every headline, every pregame show, every discussion was framed around one thing: how easily the Aces would crush the Fever and move on to the WNBA Finals. But in sports, sometimes the story you expect crumbles right in front of your eyes. The Indiana Fever, a team held together by grit, belief, and a stubborn refusal to quit, walked into that hostile arena without 6 of their top players, including superstar rookie Caitlin Clark, veteran leader Sophie Cunningham, and several other key contributors. On paper, they weren't just underdogs, they were a team barely standing, a patchwork squad running on heart more than depth. Analysts weren't talking about how they could win. They were talking about how badly they would lose. And yet, when the final buzzer sounded, it wasn't Las Vegas celebrating under the bright lights. It was Indiana, storming off the court with an 89-73 victory that silenced every critic and turned the WNBA landscape upside down. From the moment the matchup was announced, this series was framed as a mismatch so lopsided that it almost felt cruel. ESPN panels flat out said the Fever had no chance. Sportsbooks didn't even bother setting competitive lines. Instead, the betting focused on how many points the Aces would win by, not whether Indiana could pull off a miracle. Even the pregame language was dismissive. Articles and broadcasts described the Fever's goal as survival rather than victory, painting them as little more than a speed bump on Vegas's inevitable march to another title. It was an insult that cut deep for a franchise that hadn't reached the semifinals in nearly a decade. And to make matters worse, the Fever's roster had been decimated by injuries. Caitlin Clark, the face of the team and one of the biggest stars in the sport, was sidelined. Sophie Cunningham, a fiery competitor and emotional leader, couldn't play. Sydney Colson, Chloe Bai, Ari McDonald, and Demoris Dantos were all out as well. 6 names gone, 6 critical pieces ripped from the rotation, leaving head coach Stephanie White with just 9 active players, and 5 of those 9 hadn't even been part of the rotation during the regular season. 3 of them weren't even on the team the last time Indiana faced the Atlanta Dream. The situation was so dire that some commentators openly joked about calling them the hospital squad. For most franchises, this would have been a death sentence. For Indiana, it became the foundation of something unforgettable. Their road to this moment had already been improbable. Just to reach the semifinals, they had to eliminate the Atlanta Dream on the road without Caitlin Clark, without Cunningham, and without their other missing players. It was supposed to be impossible, yet somehow they fought their way through, stunning Atlanta and punching their ticket to face the mighty Aces. No one outside their locker room believed they belonged there. Even Indiana fans, as loyal as they are, were bracing for a rough series. And on top of all that adversity, they had to open the semifinals in Las Vegas, inside one of the most intimidating arenas in the league, against a team stacked with talent, experience, and championship pedigree. The Aces weren't just defending champions. They were a dynasty in the making, with stars like Aaliyah Wilson, Jackie Young, and Chelsea Gray. They were a well-oiled machine expected to steamroll anyone in their path. The Fever weren't just underdogs. They were supposed to be invisible. Picture the scene before tip-off. The lights dim. The crowd erupts. The spotlight shines down as Aaliyah Wilson steps to center court to receive her MVP trophy. It's a moment dripping with symbolism. the reigning champions celebrating their leader. A visual reminder to everyone watching that Las Vegas is the present and the future of the league. The Fever players stood quietly on the sideline, almost like extras in someone else's movie. It wasn't just about being underestimated. It was about being erased from the narrative entirely. Everything that night was built around the Aces' dominance, and Indiana's presence felt like an afterthought. Even Las Vegas players admitted they were preparing to handle business and move on quickly. The consensus was clear. Game 1 wasn't about if the Aces would win, but by how much. But then the game began, and everything changed. From the opening tip, there was a different energy in the way Indiana moved, defended, and attacked. You could see it in their body language. They weren't intimidated. They weren't just happy to be there. They came to fight. Kelsey Mitchell, long respected as a dangerous scorer, but often overlooked in conversations about the league's elite guards, took the court with fire in her eyes. This was supposed to be A'ja Wilson's night, but Mitchell was determined to write a different story. Shot after shot, drive after drive, she dismantled the Las Vegas defense, refusing to let Indiana fade into the background. By the time the first quarter ended, the crowd's confidence had started to waver. By halftime, they were stunned into uneasy silence. Mitchell wasn't just hot, she was unstoppable. She finished the night with 34 points, hitting 12 of 23 shots from the field, 4 of 6 from deep, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the free throw line. It was a performance for the history books, not just because of the numbers, but because of the stage. No Fever player had scored 30-plus in a playoff game since 2012. And no one in WNBA history had ever put up 34 in their very first semifinal appearance until Mitchell did it. And she did it against the defending champs on the night their star was crowned MVP, Caitlin Clark, sidelined with injury and forced to watch from the bench. Summed up the moment perfectly with a simple 2-word post on social media. Kelsey, unreal. That reaction captured what everyone was feeling. Mitchell had carried her team through the storm, and in doing so, she didn't just earn respect, she demanded it. Even Las Vegas head coach Becky Hammon, known for her no-nonsense approach, admitted after the game that they had no answer for Mitchell. It wasn't just that she scored. It was how she scored, with poise, aggression, and an unrelenting will to win. The symbolism of the night couldn't have been louder. While Wilson was celebrated as the league's most valuable player, Mitchell was making her own case, saying through her play, "We've got a most valuable player, too, and she's wearing Fever, red, blue, and yellow." This game wasn't just a clash of teams. It was a clash of narratives. Las Vegas represented the established order, the proven champions. Indiana represented chaos, resilience, and the power of belief. And in Game 1, belief won. When the final horn sounded and the Fever walked off the court with an 89-73 victory, it wasn't just a win on the scoreboard. It was a statement to the entire league. Underestimate us at your own risk. For nearly 10 years, Indiana had been an afterthought in the WNBA landscape. They hadn't won a semifinal game in almost a decade. Their fans had endured heartbreak after heartbreak, watching other franchises rise while theirs struggled to rebuild. But on this night, all of that changed. The Fever didn't just survive. They thrived. They walked into the lion's den and took down the beast, leaving everyone, analysts, fans, and even their opponents scrambling to make sense of what they had just witnessed. And perhaps the most powerful part of all was what happened after the game. When Caitlin Clark gathered her teammates in the locker room, she may not have been able to play, but her voice carried weight. According to those present, she delivered a message that has since gone viral. A simple, heartfelt reminder that this team's strength comes from its unity, while the exact words haven't been revealed. Players hinted that it was about proving everyone wrong and staying locked in for the battles ahead. Whatever she said, it clearly resonated. Because the Fever didn't just celebrate the win, they treated it as the first step in something bigger. Game 1 wasn't supposed to belong to them. It wasn't supposed to belong to anyone but A'ja Wilson and the Aces. But sports are about moments. And the Fever seized theirs with both hands. They turned a night of MVP glory into a night of underdog triumph. And now, instead of facing a sweep, they stand one win away from taking control of the series. The entire league is watching, wondering if this was a fluke or the start of something historic. But for the Fever and their fans, one thing is already clear. No matter what anyone says, they are here to fight and they are not done yet. They are here to fight and they are not done yet. When the world counted them out, the Indiana Fever responded with a defensive masterpiece that shook the foundation of the WNBA and proved that heart, strategy, and relentless determination can topple even the most dominant of champions. This wasn't just a team pulling off a random upset or riding a hot shooting night. This was a complete takeover in every area of the game. With the Fever systematically dismantling the Las Vegas Aces in the very places Vegas was supposed to be, untouchable. Heading into this series, everyone expected the Aces to control the paint, dominate with physicality, and let their MVP A'ja Wilson impose her will on both ends of the floor. The Fever, missing 6 key players, were supposed to be too thin, too inexperienced, and too outmatched to keep up with the reigning champ's size and power. Instead, Indiana flipped the script in stunning fashion, turning their supposed weaknesses into strengths and exposing cracks in the Aces' armor that few believed even existed. By the time the game ended, not only had the Fever shocked the world with their 89-73 victory, but they had also laid out a blueprint for how to disrupt a dynasty. A blueprint built on grit, discipline, and fearlessness. At the heart of this defensive effort was Aaliyah Boston, who faced one of the most daunting assignments imaginable, guarding the newly crowned MVP A'ja Wilson. Wilson isn't just any player. She is a force of nature, a 2-time champion, an unstoppable scorer who thrives in the post and stretches defenses with her versatility. Most players tasked with guarding Wilson crumble under the pressure, simply trying to survive rather than truly contain her. But Boston came into the game with a different mindset. She didn't try to outscore Wilson. She didn't try to match her move for move. Instead, she focused on disruption, pushing Wilson out of her comfort zones, contesting every catch and making sure every shot felt like a grind. From the opening tip, Boston's physicality and positioning were flawless. She forced Wilson into awkward angles, cut off passing lanes, and never allowed her to establish an easy rhythm. While Wilson still finished with a respectable 16 points and 13 rebounds, those numbers were deceptive. Every bucket came at a cost. Every rebound was hard-earned. Wilson's usual dominance was replaced by frustration, as she was repeatedly forced into late shot clock attempts and tough contested looks. Boston didn't erase the MVP, but she made her look human. And in a matchup like this, that alone was a monumental victory. The ripple effect of Boston's performance spread across the entire Fever defense. With Wilson unable to freely dictate the offense, Las Vegas lost its primary engine. This gave Indiana the opening they needed to set the tone defensively and control the pace of the game. Lexi Hull played a pivotal role on the perimeter, drawing the assignment of guarding Jackie Young, one of the most dangerous wings in the league. Hull shadowed Young with relentless energy, fighting through screens, staying disciplined on fakes, and denying her the clean looks she usually thrives on. As a result, Young never found her flow, and her usual impact was significantly muted. Hull's effort wasn't limited to defense either. She stepped up offensively with timely three-pointers that kept Indiana's momentum alive, showing that her contributions were about more than just stopping someone else. She was inspiring her own team through her complete two-way play. Then there was Odyssey Sims, who brought a different kind of chaos to the floor. Sims attacked the Aces' defense with a fearless mindset, refusing to let them settle into their comfort zone. Time and again, she drove straight into the heart of Vegas's defense, drawing fouls, collapsing defenders, and forcing the Aces to scramble. This aggression did more than just generate points. It shifted the entire tempo of the game. Las Vegas, usually the team dictating pace and control, suddenly found themselves reacting instead of leading. Sims turned the game into a fast, chaotic battle. Exactly the type of environment that favored the Fever. Her energy spread like wildfire through her teammates, fueling Indiana's confidence with every possession. Natasha Howard provided the steady interior presence that Indiana desperately needed. Recording yet another double-double, she was a force on the glass. Boxing out hard and creating crucial second-chance opportunities for her team. Defensively, she walled off the lane, preventing Vegas from dominating inside the way they usually do. Meanwhile, Brianna Turner's impact went beyond the stat sheet. While her box score numbers may not have jumped off the page, her defensive presence was undeniable. She altered shots, disrupted passing lanes, made the paint a place where the Aces couldn't just walk in and score at will. Her timing on help defense was impeccable. And her ability to stay vertical without fouling frustrated Vegas's post players all night long. Statistically, the Fever accomplished something few thought possible. They outscored the Aces 52-38 in the paint, an area where Las Vegas was supposed to dominate. This reversal of expectations was staggering. The Aces had built their championship identity on punishing teams inside. Yet, here they were, being beaten at their own game by a team missing 6 key players. Even Becky Hammon, one of the sharpest coaches in the league, couldn't hide her frustration post-game. She admitted bluntly that her team had no answer for Kelsey Mitchell's offensive eruption and that their defensive effort overall was really poor. This was not the kind of language you expect from a championship coach. And it spoke volumes about just how thoroughly Indiana had imposed their will. The Fever's success wasn't just about stopping Wilson or shutting down one aspect of Vegas's attack. It was about collective effort. Every player who stepped on the court bought into Stephanie White's game plan. They communicated, rotated, and trusted one another completely. When one player got beat, another was there to help. When a shot went up, multiple Fever jerseys crashed the glass. This unity was especially impressive given how patched together the roster was due to injuries. Many of these players hadn't shared significant minutes before this playoff run. Yet on this night, they looked like a team that had been playing together for years. White's coaching deserves immense credit here. She managed her shortened rotation masterfully, making quick adjustments and keeping her players fresh despite the lack of depth. Her ability to instill belief and execute strategy under these conditions was nothing short of remarkable. Momentum swings are inevitable in playoff basketball, and the Aces made their runs. In the third quarter, Las Vegas mounted a surge that threatened to erase Indiana's lead. The crowd roared back to life, sensing a familiar script. The champs shaking off a slow start and reasserting control. But this Fever team refused to back down. They answered every punch with one of their own, responding to Vegas's run with a surge of their own to close the quarter strong. This resilience was a defining characteristic of the night. Time and again, Indiana was tested, and time and again, they rose to the challenge. It was as if every player carried a chip on their shoulder, fueled by the disrespect they'd endured leading up to the game. By the fourth quarter, the body language of both teams told the story. The Fever were locked in, communicating with sharpness and urgency. The Aces, meanwhile, looked rattled. Their usual confidence had been replaced by frustration as their shots clanged off the rim and their defensive rotations broke down. When the final minutes arrived, it was Indiana, not Las Vegas, who looked like the poised, battle-tested team. The Fever closed out the game with authority, never allowing Vegas even a sliver of hope for a comeback. As the final buzzer sounded, the stat sheet painted a picture that few could have predicted. Indiana had won the battle of the boards. They had controlled the pace. They had dominated in the paint. And they had done it all while missing half their roster. This wasn't a lucky shooting night or a one-off fluke. It was the result of precise execution and unwavering belief. Becky Hammon's post-game comments reflected the harsh reality her team now faced. She acknowledged that Indiana didn't just beat them, they exposed weaknesses. For a championship team, this kind of loss is a wake-up call. The implications moving forward are massive. In a best-of-5 series, dropping Game 1 is dangerous, but it's not a death sentence. Historically, about 28% of teams who lose Game 1 still come back to win the series. The Aces know this. They've been here before. They understand how to adjust quickly and respond with urgency. Game 2 will be a completely different battle, with Las Vegas expected to come out swinging. Wilson, in particular, will be on a mission to reclaim her dominance after being disrupted so thoroughly in the opener. Jackie Young will look to shake free from Lexi Hull's defensive grip by attacking early in transition before Indiana's defense can set. And Becky Hammon will surely make strategic tweaks to counter the Fever's game plan. For Indiana, the challenge now shifts. Winning as the underestimated underdog is one thing. Winning again when the opponent is fully locked in and desperate is another. The Fever must prove that Game 1 wasn't just a flash in the pan. Can Kelsey Mitchell replicate her scoring brilliance when faced with double teams and traps? Can Aaliyah Boston continue to frustrate Wilson for a second straight game? Can the supporting cast maintain their defensive intensity and rebounding dominance? These questions will define the series. Stephanie White has made it clear to her team that they can't get caught up in the noise. Greatness is not defined by easy victories, but by how a team responds when the world expects them to fall apart. And the Indiana Fever are showing the entire WNBA what true resilience looks like. After their stunning 89-73 victory over the reigning champions, the Las Vegas Aces, the Fever, find themselves standing at the crossroads of history, knowing that one game does not define a series, but can completely alter its trajectory. Game 1 was supposed to be a mere formality, a warm-up for the champs as they began their quest for a third straight title. Instead, it turned into a masterpiece of execution, grit, and collective willpower by a team missing 6 key players, including their superstar rookie, Caitlin Clark. The headlines leading up to the game painted Indiana as sacrificial lambs sent to slaughter. A team so depleted that even keeping the game respectable would have been considered a minor miracle. Yet when the final buzzer sounded, the Fever had done more than just survive. They had dominated, leaving the Aces shell-shocked and their own fans in disbelief. Now, the spotlight intensifies, and the stakes rise even higher. Game 2 looms as the ultimate test of whether this Indiana team is a fleeting underdog story or a legitimate contender capable of dethroning a dynasty. The challenge ahead is daunting. Las Vegas will not take another loss lightly, especially on their home floor. A'ja Wilson, freshly crowned MVP before Game 1, will come out with vengeance burning in her veins. Jackie Young, Chelsea Gray, Kay, and Kelsey Plum will look to reclaim their offensive rhythm and erase the embarrassment of their opening defeat. And Becky Hammon, one of the sharpest coaching minds in the league, will unleash every adjustment in her playbook to counter the Fever's defensive schemes. For Indiana, this means Game 2 will not be won by emotion alone. It will require even greater discipline, focus, and execution than before. The Fever's path to victory lies in doubling down on what worked so brilliantly in Game 1, while preparing for the inevitable counterpunch. Defensively, that begins with Aaliyah Boston.